YouTube, welcome back. We're back for another trade recap. Feels like it's been ages since the previous one. Obviously, we had the bank holiday weekend just gone, so we've had 3 days since our last trade on Friday. Just feels like a long time, and it's weird when you start trading, you kind of wait for the weekday. You kind of can't wait in a sense. So yeah, it feels like a long time. Obviously, we didn't trade yesterday with it being the bank holiday. And yeah, so we're back in today. So today being Tuesday, the 26th of May 2026. We pretty much got stopped out at break even. I moved my stop loss just above break even, so we actually ended up making $370 across the three accounts. But like I say, it was pretty much break even. It was about $100, I think. $100 on one account, 110, and then 130 on the other two accounts, which obviously totals the 370. But we'll go through everything. So yeah, we'll do that in a moment for you. If you can hear a noise, it's this, by the way, because for those who don't know, and a lot of people, I say a lot of people may not watch this, but if a lot of people do end up watching this, you won't know this, but it's about 300 million degrees in the UK right now, and it's just no good. It is hot. I've just been to the gym, which adds to the equation of being hot, and it's not enjoyable at all. So this little fan is on me full blast. So if you can hear that, I do apologise. In fact, I am going to turn it down. Hopefully that's not bad. Hopefully the first 2 minutes of that wasn't that blasting into the mic. I'll just be hot for the next 10 minutes or so. But anyway, let's get going. So market opened, and what happened? Now obviously there was two draws that I had, and I want to focus more heavily on NQ at the moment here. So there was two draws I had in mind. Obviously we had this new week opening gap here, where price opened higher. Now, this is always a big draw on liquidity, so price always wants to come and fill this area. It's just how it is. It happens a lot of the time. And yeah, price wants to come down here. So we had that draw, but we also had equal highs on NQ, which is an incredibly strong draw, especially in a bullish trend. So you can see we had this high here and this high here. So if we go down to like the 15-minute, for example, bear with me while I try and find this. Yeah, there we go. So you can see that these highs here, not only did we have this high here, but we also had a high and a high, literal equal highs, and that to me was a very, very strong draw. So we had two directions where price could have gone today. Now, I wanted to see what happened market open, because during Asia we made that move down, respected this obviously this gap here on the 4 hour. We were in this 4 hour gap. We're still respecting bullish structure. We hadn't come down and filled this gap, but obviously we could have done that. Now, during London session, we made a move down, swept this low out here, and we did the same on ES, I believe. Yeah. So moved down here, swept that low out, but still maintained in this 4 hour gap. So coming into session, I was definitely, I think, leaning more towards being bullish, but I definitely wanted to see what price wanted to do, because should it have come up straight away, swept these highs out, probably would have looked for a reversal towards this gap. Maybe not as far as that, but maybe London lows. I don't know, but would have had to see where price was. But as you can see on ES, we ended up pretty much coming and filling this gap. Now, if this doesn't fill this gap by New York Open tomorrow, it's going to be a pretty strong draw, in my opinion. But we'll see how that plays. It'll probably get filled overnight, especially during Asia or London, and we'll see where price is after that. But anyway, let's go through today. So Price, market opened. Now we've got 230 here, so market opened there, and we made this move lower. So especially on ES, you can see we swept out this low here that I had marked out. We swept out this 15-minute low that I'd marked out here, and obviously we had London low here, which you can see was eventually swept out. Now on NQ, we didn't quite make that move down, so we swept. That wasn't a 15-minute low. Don't worry, I wasn't marking that as a low. It was a 5-minute low that I had. And then we did have this 15 minutes low here, which price didn't come and fill. And also it did obviously make its way down to, get rid of that. It didn't make its way down to London lows either. So we have this big SMT. Now, I never use SMTs as a confluence to specifically enter off of entirely. So I would never look at this and go, right, I'm going to enter a trade because there's not enough confirmation. For me, an SMT is a great way of strengthening a bias. So I've now seen this SMT form with swept London lows on ES, not on NQ. That to me is right. Okay, now let's look for confirmation that price is going to reverse, go higher, and seek these all-time highs on NQ and potentially on ES also. So what do we look for? I went down to the 5-minute. Obviously, you can see this move down here. We create a 5-minute bearish fair value gap here, which I definitely want to see inversed. Now we've got this gap here, and then also on NQ, you'll notice that we have this gap here. So because we didn't make this move down as aggressive, the move up wasn't too far away either on NQ, so we inversed that quicker than we did on ES. But on ES, we did eventually obviously take that out. Now, once we inverse that, I want to see a continuation confluence. I want to see price fill that area, respect it, and then show a bullish movement out of it. Now, this is where I use both indexes to my advantage because at this point, price had already moved too high. If I was going to trade on ES, not on ES, on NQ, sorry, I would have wanted price to come down into equilibrium and into this 3-minute gap that I have marked out here. So let's just get rid of that for a sec. So you can see this 3-minute gap that I've got marked just there. Now let me mark out equilibrium for you as well, because this is something that I wanted price to do. So we obviously got this low here to that high there. Obviously you can see equilibrium being there, so I would have wanted price to come into equilibrium, fill this gap, and then show a reverse like that. If it had done that, I would have traded on NQ. In hindsight, and hindsight's a great thing, I wish I'd have taken my trade on NQ, and I'll go through that at the end of this. But we ended up taking our trade on ES. So obviously we made this move down. Now we respected this 5-minute gap that we had marked out here. So you can see that, one second, from that wick there to there, we had that gap form. So obviously, like I said, we've inversed this gap here, this bearish gap. Now we've created this bullish gap. We come back into it, respect it, and now I want to see price extend out of that and back up to the upside. So on ES, you can obviously see that we ended up obviously inversing this gap, this 1-minute gap here, and also we broke structures to the 1 minute. So I think I probably would have entered here anyway, but it's not what I actually entered from. So you can see that, let me just get rid of equilibrium for a sec. There's a candle not loading here. What is that? That's so annoying. Anyway, you can see this so this move down here, we swept this low out here on the 1 minute. On NQ we didn't, so it must be that there. It must be that. So we made this move down, we stayed above it, and then you can see this 1 minute gap that I have here, and also this high here. I'm pretty certain there's a candle missing. I'm pretty certain it's like that. I don't know what's going on here, but because I had that marked out as a high, whereas that wouldn't be a high because it's not a low here, but I'm pretty sure this candle extends down here. Anyway, it's not showing us that, so we'll just do this. So we had the S&T anyway. I had this fair value gap marked out, which I wanted to see price inverse anyway, so this was just an added confluence, the breaking structure. But yeah, so you can see price obviously inverse that gap, and typically what I have noticed is that once price extends past all-time highs, it does tend to rally quite a bit further. Now, obviously, you can see that happened, and this is where I say I wish I'd have taken my trade on NQ because it was the leading index. Now, I thought that once we'd inverse this gap, we were most likely going to make that extension up, which I did think was going to happen. So I took my trade on ES off that 1 minute inverse fair value gap on NQ, and I originally targeted all-time highs on ES, just thinking price would drag itself up on ES because of NQ. It did, but just nowhere near enough for me to hit my TP. I ended up moving it down to this high here, just hoping that we'd get a retrace and an extension back up. But you can see that we made a move back down, and my stops were, I want to say, my stops were there. So just the closure of that gap there, just a thought, if price comes down this low from up here, then we're most likely going to hit my take profit, not my take profit, my stop loss anyway. So we'll just put it there, and we'll just make a slight bit on the day. So yeah, now I wish I'd have taken my trade on NQ, and this is something I've got to get better at. So when I've done my journaling for today's trade, I've definitely noted down that just the recognition of which index is better to take it on the day. So I think if I had taken something like this, now let's even say I took this inverse of the fair value gap here. So if we long off of this, so if we go down to that low there, in fact I could probably even go down to that low there. My usual preference for a stop loss is around 250 ticks, so could have gone there. I think I would have been more comfortable there, being perfectly honest. So I probably would have reduced my contract size, and then just had to set myself a bigger stop loss. Now I could have gone like a 2-to-1. Would that have hit take profit? I don't even know. It's close. We're about to find out together, because this is actually the first time I'm looking at this. Yeah, it would have literally just hit take profit at 2-to-1. Now, this is something I've got to work on away from the cameras, and something I've got to improve at. But I think something like that probably would have been a better trade, because NQ was definitely moving better in terms of price. It was the leading index, and like I say, typically what happens that I've noticed is when price does move past all-time highs, we do get that extension up, and it doesn't just typically wick it. It typically makes a bigger move past it and creates a new all-time high. So I think that's, in hindsight, what I should have done. And look, this is why recapping is so important, and going through your trades and analysing what would have worked, what wouldn't have worked, and just going through it, because I now know for next time that maybe this is something I should do, and it could be something that makes me money on the day, and saves me from hitting a break even, or potentially even hitting a stop loss. Because if I'd had stayed in the trade on ES, it would have come down and hit my stop loss, and I would have had another losing day, and that would have been 3 on the bounce, which can be not detrimental, but it can certainly affect things. But look, we're staying positive. There's still a long way to go in terms of getting a payout, but we're on the right track in terms of staying consistent with our strategy, staying consistent in terms of mindset, and yeah, I think we're getting there. Anyway, so we'll just keep going. There's 3 trading days left of the week. Hopefully, we'll be able to take a winning trade, and we'll be able to recap that with you. But for today, that is pretty much everything I want to go through. I think. Let me just have a little think quickly. Yeah, yeah, I think that's everything. I'm going to leave a screenshot of the updated balances, just so you can see that as well. I didn't manage to screenshot it with the plus 130 on 2 accounts and the plus 110, and it resets after a certain amount of time on TradeSync, so you can just see the updated balances. If you go back and watch a previous video, you'll see that the balances have gone up, that amount since that last video. So yeah, I'll just put that in for you, so you'll see that on your screens now. And yeah, that is today's trade recap. Break even on the day, but not a bad way to start the week. We haven't lost money, so that's the way to look at it. And it's about staying positive for the rest of the week. And actually, while I'm thinking about it, I'm currently reading a book at the moment. Now it's called Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas. So I don't know whether you can see that, or whether the camera's big enough, but hopefully you can see that anyway. But yeah, it's just a really good read at the moment. I'm really enjoying going through it, and there's a lot of stuff that I'm reading in here that relates to what I've noticed in the last 4 or 5 months of my trading. And it's just about being consistent and having that mindset that it's not an overnight thing, and the most successful traders in the world aren't necessarily the best in terms of technical analysis, but they're the best because their mindset's the best. That there's not emotion when they enter a trade. When they do enter a trade, they've accepted the risk. It's not about losing money. I would recommend reading it, because I'm not quoting word for word everything he says, and I've read it once before, and this was probably, I want to say, maybe a year ago now. I read it, and I think I read it without fully being able to understand the concepts behind it, and being able to understand that what he was saying is true. Now I've been able to recognize the pattern of consistency and patience, and just sticking to what you know. This book makes a hell of a lot of sense. And if you are reading this for the first time, and if you are new to trading, then just read it out loud and take in what he's saying, because it will save you a hell of a lot of time. The book might necessarily not make you profitable, but it will definitely change your mindset and perception behind trading. So definitely give that a read. So it's Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas. That's what I'm reading at the moment. And yeah, it's about these small improvements day by day, 1% each day, and you'll get there. Set your goals, be consistent, be patient, analyze, track it, manage it, and over time you'll see the rewards. So we're going to leave it there for today. Gone on a little tangent, a little motivational moment for myself there, but we'll leave it there. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.